We are anchored in Pirates Bay. It's hard to believe a place like this exists. No matter where you look from our sailboat, the view is pure magic. Turquoise water laps gently at golden strips of sand, framed by a wall of deep, lush green.
Okay. Wir sind angekommen. Das ist so schön. Paradies.
From the beach, the sea shimmers crystal clear, revealing the soft sandy bottom below, rolling out toward the horizon, where distant hills and rugged cliffs rise like ancient watchmen, letting the waves crash at their feet. Above it all, nature plays its symphony. Pairs of green parrots chat overhead, while elegant boobies ride the wind with effortless grace. Now and then, a small turtle surfaces beside the boat for a breath. And even out here, the occasional pelican glides past like a feathered ghost of pirate days. We made it. We arrived this afternoon. But honestly, it was brutal. And let's rewind, because this story actually got cut right in the middle of the last episode, right in the middle of this passage. And everything that happened after that, well, that's what's missing.
I had actually expected a rather uncomfortable passage, maybe a bit rough and demanding, but what we actually encountered out there was on a completely different level. In total, we were 27 hours on the way from Trinidad to Tobago, and it felt like we had to work for every single mile. Step by step, we pushed forward while wind waves and current kept getting stronger the further we went. So basically everything was working against us. Especially at night, it became really intense. We had to push the engine quite hard at times just to keep making progress. And while we were out there in the dark, the thought kept coming back that we might actually be getting low on diesel. In hindsight, it's always easier to say, but we definitely should have topped up the tank before. So yeah, just after sunrise, exactly what had been building up happened. The engine stops. So we are left with no choice but refuel diesel in these conditions. Our tank filler is located on the side next to the cockpit, which already makes it difficult in calm water, but in these conditions it becomes a real challenge. So we try to work as carefully as possible, not spilling anything, trying to keep balance while the boat keeps moving through the waves. And in that exact moment, a large wave hits us. The boat dives deep into a wave crest and the entire foredeck gets washed over and the water runs directly along the railing toward the cockpit. It all happened so fast that we can barely react. Maybe we had like 1 or 2 seconds and seawater was already in the tank. At that moment, there's not much you can do except hope it wasn't too much. Luckily, the engine starts again afterwards and keeps running normally for now. But the strange feeling remains that it could go off any moment. The rest of the passage drags on again. It's exhausting and at times simply annoying because the conditions don't get better. The waves eventually even find their way through the ventilation openings into the interior. So I try to close everything while we continue trying to make our way forward. And then just before midday, we finally see our destination, Pirates Bay. The water finally becomes calmer, the waves almost completely disappear. We reverse onto a free mooring ball. Suddenly it is calm, no engine noise anymore, no fighting against the elements, just a light, pleasant wind and the feeling of finally being there. So yeah, the journey there wasn't anything but easy, but in moments like this you remember why you do it all. And sometimes I catch myself thinking back to that passage, that intensity, and how a small part of me wishes I was out there again, right in the middle of it. Aber wir haben es geschafft, nach 27 Stunden. Wir sind da in der Boje und es ist mega schön. Wir haben eine Boje verwünscht. Wir sind ein bisschen im abgelegenen Regenfeld, wo eigentlich sonst niemand ist, außer das Boot, aber ich glaube, das ist ganz... Es ist mega schön. Oder? Und es hat echt mega den schönen Strand. Wir sind vorher schon schnorcheln, es hat Korallen. Ja, und einfach der Blick da raus. Was? Ich glaube, wir sind auch Hallo Karibik.
Pirates Bay feels like a dream we don't want to wake up from. A place where the jungle meets the sea and the spirit of old pirate tales still lingers in the air. At night, Pirates Bay truly enchants. The stars spill across the sky like silver dust. The water beneath the boat twinkles as if the sea itself is dreaming, and the dark forest on shore sparkles with fireflies. One curious glowing guest even joins us aboard, a tiny lantern floating through the night.
Das ist Pirates Bay.
I love it here. The water glows in shades of turquoise and blue. The sun warms my skin and the sand beneath, soft and familiar. We might stay a while, just be, just breathe. The intense time in the boatyard is finally over. For weeks, our days revolved around removing rust and working through what felt like an endless to-do list. Everything was loud, chaotic, dusty, and somehow never quite finished. And now, we are back out here. Suddenly a huge weight lifts off of our shoulders. I feel proud of everything we have managed and learned along the way.
Hi, los!
It feels like real life is finally beginning again, leaving the construction site chaos behind and returning to nature. The water almost feels magical, as if it washes away the past weeks. The stress, the pressure, the exhaustion. And somewhere between that first jump into the water, the gentle rocking of the boat, and the view of all those endless shades of blue, I can feel this deep sense of happiness slowly spreading within me. Charlotteville, our home for the next few days. Alongside Scarborough, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, the capital on the other side of the island, it's considered the second largest town on Tobago. But town somehow feels like the wrong word. Charlotteville is really more of a small fishing village, spread across a few green hills in the middle of the rainforest. Wow. Wir sind hier. Und dort hinten ganz hinten ist unser Schiffchen. Das ist mega. Ja. Die Farbe vom Wasser. Many of the men here own small fishing boats. Early in the morning they head out into the Caribbean Sea, later returning with their catch and often selling the fish the very same day directly in the village.
Schön mit den Crocs. Kleine Windstehen und die Crocs.
The place feels almost forgotten by the rest of the world. Quiet, slow-paced and secluded. Everything seems to move a little slower here. No rush, no stress, just this calm rhythm of everyday life. People sit outside their homes. Music drifts through the streets somewhere in the background. Chickens wander freely along the roads, and everyone greets you warmly as you pass by. Everything feels simple, honest, and somehow pleasantly uncomplicated. feels as if Charlotteville has created its own little world. A place where time does not seem quite so important. And life follows the rhythm of the sun, the sea, and the weather rather than clocks or schedules.
So we actually planned to leave at 2 o'clock. The boat was ready, everything cleaned up and stowed away, every loose item tied down, so nothing goes flying once we're back at sea. The navigation is already running, our night berth is prepared, and mentally I was already halfway out there. The ocean was calling.
Der Motor ist nicht angesprungen.
So I went to start the engine. Well, at least I tried to. It starts for a brief moment, then immediately dies again. Another try, same thing. So shit, what's going on?
Jetzt gibt es zuerst mal ein Bier.
So it can't really be the battery. Everything else seems completely normal, but the engine only comes alive for a second before it was shutting down again. And with every new attempt, the uneasy feeling grows a little stronger.
Mal schauen, ob wir da wegkommen diese Woche noch.
Outside, the weather is supposed to get rougher over the next few days. Conditions getting worse. So we sit down in the cockpit, look at each other, and just try to figure out what we are even supposed to do now. In the end, we decided to stay.
Motor.
So we did send a quick WhatsApp message to the immigration asking if we could stay longer, despite already checking out if it would be a problem. And luckily the answer comes back pretty relaxed, no problem at all. And suddenly, instead of setting off, we have all the time in the world to figure out our engine. So the next few days we spent surrounded by tours, the smell of diesel, and phone calls with a friend who patiently explains step by step how this whole system actually works. So we replaced every filter, bleeded the system, what feels like 100 times, and along the way end up learning a huge amount of new things. And then 3 days later, the engine was finally running again. And as it turns out, all this drama was probably caused by nothing more than a filter that hadn't been tightened properly. So actually not that dramatic after all. But in the exact moment the engine starts calmly ticking away again, it still feels like the greatest victory ever.
And so a few days suddenly turn into a few more. It keeps raining on and off, and somehow that suddenly feels exactly right. Sometimes it's the circumstances that makes you stay longer than planned. At first it feels like a problem, a delay, something that is holding you back. But once you stop fighting it and simply go with the flow, accepting things as they come, you slowly realize that maybe this is exactly what you needed. That life sometimes has its own way of showing you quite clearly when it's time to move on and when it isn't. And maybe these extra days here are exactly what I needed. A little more rest, a little more time to breathe before the adventure continues. Thanks so much for watching till the end. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And if you believe in going with the flow, just leave a wave emoji in the comments. So see you in the next one. Bye bye!